Welcome. Welcome back. Tonight's demo is something I've been working on. The name is Food Safe to Start, Food Safe to Finish. And what I've done is I've been exploring ways of making finishes out of products that are already food safe or already foods. Therefore, once the finish is made, you know it's food safe. There are a lot of great commercial finishes out there that are food safe. A lot of finishes will, once they're cured, once they're dried, are food safe. But the problems I was running into is the turpentines, the thinners, the additives. I don't know what they are, and I don't want to smell them. And what I really like is doing all my finishing on the lathe. And I don't want those coming at me at 2000 RPMs. I don't know what chemicals those are. So that's where this was sort of born out of. I'm going to jump around a little bit in order to us not have to watch boiling water. And if anybody has any questions, just please jump in whenever you can. What I have going here right now is, this is just Carnauba Wax that I've melted. And Carnauba Wax has a melting point of, where are we at here? 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 82 Celsius. It's a plant-based wax that comes from the Carnauba palm. It's actually vegan, and it's the hardest wax. It has a lot of uses. One of the things it's used for is it's like a natural lubricating. It is used for mold releases. And one of the interesting things I found was new ketchup bottles, as of a few years ago, are actually lined with Carnauba wax, so the ketchup will not stick in the inside of the bottles. And it is what's on M&Ms. This finish right here is Carnauba Wax.
That's not the one that's wax.
No, that's mineral oil.
Oh, right.
This is Carnauba Wax. I bought snacks. M&Ms are all coated in Carnauba Wax, and that's what gives them their shine.
How do they get it on there without them melting?
I believe it's rotated. It's rotated in a drum.
But M&Ms?
So I'm not a food science expert, but I'll pass.
They freeze the M&Ms. Well, now you've found my weakness. You hold it long enough, you know, but who holds them that long?
So what I like to do with Carnauba Wax is use it as just in stick form. And pressing it on a lathe, it's great for pens. I like to pour it into these tubes here. They are conical centrifuge tubes. My wife's a scientist, so she introduced me to these. The wax will go in those, and it makes a nice sort of crayon point on the tube. One of the things about melting Carnauba Wax is you have to let it cool slowly. So what I've done is made a little tray to hold my test tubes. And then turn that off. Oh, yeah, let me show that quick. Thank you. I meant to show that earlier. This is how Carnauba Wax comes. It comes in a flake. I don't know if you can get that overhead there.
With the buffet wheel, it comes in a car.
Correct. And that's what you can use these sticks for if you decide to.
That's kind of like a shellac flake.
Yes, it's like a shellac flake. It's actually, they beat it off the palm leaves. It actually comes from Brazil, and they beat up the palm leaves till the wax flakes off and then refine it.
Flakes dissolve in alcohol like shellac or melt only?
No, they will melt only. They do not chemically dissolve. They will dissolve in certain solvents like turpentine, but I don't like to use turpentine. There is a natural solvent called D-limonene, which is orange oil. I have some, but I haven't tested it out, haven't experimented with it.
I have used that. I've used orange oil with beeswax.
Okay.
So it might work.
Might work with that too.
Everything smells like orange.
Exactly.
Where'd you get your orange oil or your orange solvent?
Amazon.
Home Depot.
Oh,
How does it hold up when you use it? We use the plate.
I'm sorry.
How does it hold up when you actually use the plate? Does it turn it white or anything?
No, it colors a little bit. We lost the plate.
It's got M&Ms in
Yeah,
it.
it's got full of M&Ms. I'll show you after I show you how to mix these, and I'll show them in use.
Are you familiar with the Beal buffing system?
Yes.
Okay, so I got a piece of Carnauba wax with that. That's in like a block form.
Yep.
So is that treated? How is that compared to the flakes?
It's probably identical.
Okay.
It's just it's been melted into that form. And you can see this sort of makes this weird skin in the inside of the container.
Okay.
So with Carnauba wax, you want to have it cool slowly. If you don't, it will crack. It's very brittle. So what I've done is made this little tray, and then that goes in an insulated cooler. Sometimes I'll take a thermal heat wrap. This goes in the microwave for like neck pain and things like that. And I'll leave that in with there so that it retains its heat, and zip that up and just let that cool for a few hours overnight, whatever.
Are those tubes glass?
No, they're plastic. It does
Plastic.
contract a little bit. Yep. Yes. Yep. And it's not a perfect system. Sometimes they do still crack on you. You can still use all the pieces. Like this is one I made earlier that while I'm using it and putting a lot of pressure, it is cracked into little stubs, but they work just as well. Leave that one go. What I'm cooking these in is a double boiler. It's a pan full of water, and I put a jar lid in it. You can use an actual commercial double boiler, like a candy maker's double boiler, which is basically just two saucepans that sit inside one another. You don't want to heat it directly over or directly over the stove because it'll burn. So the next one coming up is this one. I pre-measured. This is walnut oil. Walnut oil is another finish that I like to use. I use it as a sanding oil and a finish. It's pressed from walnuts. It's made to use in salad dressings and things like that. It has the interesting property that it is actually a polymerizing oil, one of the few natural oils that doesn't spoil. It will actually harden with heat, and it will dry with heat. So unlike other oils like olive oil that will spoil, walnut oil will not.
Walnut oil issue for people with anaphylaxis.
Most likely not. I'm not an expert in that, but I have been told that it's more the proteins in the nut meat that causes the allergic reactions.
So what did you just pour in there?
So in this container, which is coming up, this was walnut oil and then more Carnauba wax. And that's coming up on the friction polish. This one here is mineral oil and beeswax that I've been melting to make butcher's block paste. Mineral oil comes from the petroleum industry. It is a laxative and a lubricant. It's used in a lot of different things, cosmetics, tons of other different industries. This is available at pharmacies and grocery stores, along with the walnut oil. I forgot to mention that. You can buy it commercially. You can buy it either from woodworking catalogs, or you can just get it at the grocery store for about half as much.
Is it the same stuff?
Same stuff. Nope, just in the baking aisle.
Do you know what the difference is between that walnut oil and what Mahoney sells?
I don't know specifically about Mahoney's. A lot of times they have different refining procedures. I'm sure his oils are great. I don't know personally, but yeah, I just get it at the grocery store because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And there's no,
And what
there's
did you
no
say?
fires in it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What did you mix with that? The walnut oil?
Right now, this one is walnut oil and carnauba wax, and that's going to come up in a friction polish. That'll be the next recipe.
I like 50/50.
That was, hold on. It was 10 parts walnut oil and 1 part carnauba wax.
Did you use the
it was-
Carnauba flake or did you use it the
Yes,
liquid
it was the flakes.
flakes?
And that's by weight. But that one's coming up.
Handouts will be on our website in
And I did email them to
a
everyone.
few days.
Back to mineral oil. Mineral oil is also where my mineral oil.
On the link. All the balls.
This is the finish you get with mineral oil. It's a much more low sheen finish. Once it's on and cured and buffed in, it doesn't leach out. I know Jim Duxbury, you had a question about that. This one has not leached at all. And it's a nice sort of low sheen finish. That's totally food safe. It's
Hmm.
with heat and buffing.
I'll tell you, I tried everything. And if you set that on a white tablecloth for a week, you'll have a round disc mark.
Perhaps, I'd overnight, no problem. But I don't know about over a week.
I finished a cutting board one time with like a 50/50 paraffin wax, mineral oil finish. And it looked great for about 3 weeks, and then it looked like it had never been finished. But you can restore it with, so I gave it as a gift, and I gave about a 4-ounce container of the finish with it.
If you don't buff mineral oil, it'll do the same thing. You gotta keep
I didn't buff it,
reapplying.
I
Yeah,
just-
you gotta keep reapplying.
Mineral oil is used as the gloss agent on Swedish fish. That's why you can't eat very many of them. Yep. It's a self-limiting factor.
You can eat as many as you want, just gotta be prepared.
Okay, what are you doing there?
So this is the butcher's box wax. This is mineral oil and beeswax. It is done in a 4 parts mineral oil and 1 part beeswax, all by weight. And that's why I like to use a digital scale. And then I just pour it in little metal tins. And these you just let cool. It'll cool faster. That won't be a problem with these. Coming up, you don't want to do ice bath with carnauba wax because that will cool it too fast. And I'm going to do abrasive paste too. That you'll want to put in an ice bath so that the abrasives don't fall out of solution. But that is coming up next. Butcher's block paste is what I also use on my the lathe bed to keep the rust off. And you can use it as sanding paste. You may want to, I'm good. For sanding pastes, you might want to add a little bit more mineral oil so that it's a little more, it's a little thinner. Yes.
Safety question for making the flash point that one should not do this over a propane stove.
I don't know that. I don't know. I like to use one of them. I do with that I'm going to show the friction polish with grain alcohol, and I will not do that anywhere near the stove. So these will be turned off when it comes time to do that.
Where are you purchasing your little metal containers?
Amazon as well. This one is leaky.
Which of the finishes is the most non-yellowing?
The butcher's block, or just straight mineral oil. The problem with it is a very low luster finish. So one of the things I always like to do is do all my finishing on the lathe. That's why I was doing a lot with waxes. Because then I'm done. I don't like to wait around. I don't like to, tongue oil is great, but I don't want to do multiple coats.
Well, he gets himself in order. Let me just say, we're coming to you tonight with assistance from Barry on one camera, Sheila on another, Thomas on another, Tom with audio, and Mike Junkerth in reserve. So we're loaded with supporting talent here to make this thing work. And thank you, everybody, for helping make it play.
Once the butcher's wax has cooled, it's a nice white color. Sure. And that you can just apply with a paper towel on a running lathe.
But it's still just beeswax once you're done.
It is beeswax when you're done. Yep. Beeswax being very soft. It's not super protective. That's one of the things about these finishes. They are not bulletproof. So how many of you have used like Yorkshire grit? This is the mix that I've made for that. Daniel Vallejo on YouTube introduced me to this recipe. This is 4 parts mineral oil that was in here, and then 1 part beeswax. And to that, I'm going to add, I'm sorry, that is only mineral oil. There's my beeswax. Yes, beeswax normally comes from your local beekeeper, which is a great place to get beeswax, but it will come in a block like this. And you have to grate it, and it's a yellow color. I like to get beeswax from a candle supply company. It comes in these nice pellets. That means that I don't have to grate it. It's already refined to a white color.
If you get a big block of it, it's super hard to grate.
Yes.
It's just really hard to grate.
And time consuming. I don't want to spend the time. Yep. Yep. So you can get it, you know, pre-supplied in these white pellets that come pre-bleached. Sometimes they use chemicals to bleach them. This one claims to be organic, so I'm sure it's super healthy. You can actually, if you know a beekeeper that wants to bleach his own beeswax, they can do it with sunlight once it's grated. But then again, you're grating the beeswax and leaving it out in the sun. So the key abrasive in this solution is Diatomaceous Earth. I don't want to get this everywhere. Yeah.
Your lungs all cut up.
My hands are covered in wax. I can't open. Can you open that for me? Thank you.
Big, strong, like cool.
Excellent.
Anybody who has it has enough for the next 30 members.
Exactly. Let me show that quick. This is how you order Diatomaceous Earth. Comes in a 10-pound bag. It actually says the serving size on this is 1 to 2 teaspoons. So if anybody wants some, just let me know. I'll gladly share. Why does it have a serving size? That's a serving size because some people claim it has like antiparasitic properties. So they will mix it with water to drink. You can make toothpaste with it. I don't know why you would, but you can.
I know someone who makes toothpaste with it. Certain sizes of weird thing.
Is diatomaceous earth used in water softeners or in pool filtering systems? It's used someplace or other.
Yes, it's used as a filtering medium.
It's also used as a pesticide.
Yes, and a pesticide. They call it a mechanical pesticide.
Yeah, because the bugs get cut up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when a bug will get diatomaceous earth on it, bugs actually breathe through their exoskeletons, and it will clog their lungs, for lack of a better word. Interesting. And it will cut up their joints and cause all sorts of havoc. That's why it's used as a pesticide. When I first started out, I was watching Captain Eddie Castler, and he introduced me to friction polish. They call it Obi's Shine Juice. This is going to be the recipe for that with a twist. What I've done is turned it into a cream, kind of like shellac. But since I really like doing things on the lathe, I thought, you know, I can melt shellac into a stick and I could apply it just like it was a wax. And what I ended up getting, this is how the shellac comes. See that is, this is the super blonde shellac. It comes from India or Thailand. It's secretions from the lac beetle. And depending on what type of tree the beetles were eating off of, it'll come in different colors. So this is the garnet shellac. But what I thought was I could melt this down since it has a relatively low melting point and turn it into a stick and use it just like I was going to use Carnauba wax. The fortunate thing is it's so incredibly hard, it won't apply with friction. But it did make some very interesting sort of shellac, solid shellac sculptures.
You could turn those in the lid.
Trial and error, it didn't work.
And the shellac stick that is sold for furniture, like if you have cat scratches on furniture or something, you can rub the shellac stick and I think you put alcohol on top of it.
And shellac is dissolved out.
And the shellac dissolves into it and you buff it out.
Yeah, shellac is dissolved with alcohol. I like to use grain alcohol. I'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, so my diatomaceous earth ended up here. So this is the diatomaceous earth that's going to go in the abrasive paste.
Yeah, which can.
Shot there. Okay. And I like to whisk that.
What's the ratio?
It is, let me get that back here. 4 parts mineral oil, 1 part beeswax, 1 part diatomaceous earth, all by weight. It does tend to get everywhere because it's very light.
Now that we have that candy, we can brush our teeth.
And it doesn't dissolve, you disintegrate it.
It
Right?
doesn't dissolve, correct. So you want to sort of suspend it. That's why I'm using a whisk. And then I'll use an ice bath to try to get them to cool faster. And I have an ice bath off to the side here.
As you're pouring this into your container, are you continuously stirring it to keep it suspended, or do you have some time? Do you have some period of time?
Just sometimes I use a really shallow container so that I can pour them quickly and get them capped in the ice. Uncap them. This works just like the Yorkshire grit. You can stand up to, 250 or as high as you want to go, and then apply a little bit of this on it while it's not running on the lathe, and let that buff out. That will give you a much superior shine. I've used it on acrylics, on resin. I use it on my headlights when they are dull. I will spread some on the headlights and buff them out. I'm gonna need them all. They're going in the ice. I like to use dedicated equipment just for this, just because it makes the cleanup easier. Like I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to ever cook in these. Even though it's all food safe, I don't have to worry about if there's a beeswax residue inside one of these containers, like it getting in icing or whatever else I would be doing with it. For a simple double boiler like this, you can see I have the jar lid. Can you get an overhead shot? Sure. There we go. There's a jar ring inside there, and that's what's holding this container off the bottom.
You can see.
Boy, this is tightened up quite nicely. Good forearm exercise. It's good forearm exercise. Yeah. It's hot in the kitchen. Hold your pot away and we'll be able to see that red. There you can see the ring.
You can back out a little bit, you'll see a little more.
Matthew, the grit equivalent in there, I'm going to say 800 to 1,000, give or take.
Yes, give or take.
So is that a buff and polish and a final finish with the grit in it, or do you?
It can be used as a final finish. Because it's beeswax, I tend not to because I have a shinier finish. So I'll put my shellac finishes over that. Shellac is a nice finish in that you can use it over top of other finishes. It really doesn't mind. It's sometimes called like a universal finish. Okay.
Did you already put those into your ice bath? Do you have an ice bath over there someplace?
Yes.
We may not
Can't
be able to
risk
see
showing
that. Oh, Barry scan can catch that, I think.
Space keys.
Oh, I see. There it is. Yeah, I didn't see that. Okay. Got it.
Hey Matthew, how long does this last? I mean, as far as use and also obviously, like
It's not the most durable for like continual use. It can be reapplied, which is all a good one. I like the fact that I can reapply any of these finishes off the lathe with a buffing wheel if I wanted to.
I mean, the material itself that you're making doesn't have a shelf life per se.
Correct. The walnut oil ones I like to use within a year, and shellac you should use within a year.
On the walnut oil, is there any problems with allergies with people?
I don't believe so. I'm not an expert in allergies, so you have to check with a specific person. But I believe it comes from a protein inside more of the meat of the nut and not the actual oil. I think oils are fine, but I would double check before, if it's a big issue. Talk about shellac, we went over a little bit. Shellac finishes. This is the same cherry bowl or same cherry wood. It has a shellac and Carnauba wax finish on it.
The wax went down first?
It's mixed. It's mixed in the cream, which hopefully I'll be able to make shortly. And shellac is actually an ingredient in a lot of candies. It's called confectioner's glaze, which makes it sound like a sugar, but it's actually the shellac.
I like this demo more and more all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I'll go get it.
Thanks for bringing out.
That's a gorgeous piece.
Don't look at the crack in the bottom. That's why there's jelly beans in it.
That's a drawback to Zoom. We can't sample the goodies.
Yeah. Well, you got to go to your own larder is what you have to do.
You can watch us eat them.
We need some flu powder to send it our way.
So that one was a shellac and a Carnauba wax mixed.
That was, let me show you. I don't want to get too close to the heat with this. This is the cream that is a friction polish cream that I've made. And this was a trial and error. If you're familiar with friction polish, it would be shine juice. The traditional recipe is 1/3 liquid shellac from like the hardware store. It's usually a 2-pound cut shellac. 1/3 denatured alcohol and 1/3 boiled linseed oil. I did all the substitutions for everything that would be more food safe. I mixed my own shellac. This is the shellac I mixed from the blonde. This is actually a 4-pound cut of shellac.
Yeah, that's why it's so dark.
Which is why it's so dark. It's not a common cut. Most times it's either 1, 2, or 3-pound cut. And what that means is it is 1 pound of shellac by weight for 1 gallon of alcohol, which is usually denatured alcohol. On your handout, I've scaled these down to a cup of the alcohol and then the equivalent weight in shellac.
So what's the mix again?
This one is a 4-pound cut.
Just 4-pound cut of
Just a
shellac.
4-pound cut of shellac.
And the Carnauba wax, where does that get applied, or how does that work?
That'll come into the mix. So with the standard friction polish, you're going to do, and if you're familiar with Eddie Caslin's OB Shine Juice, this is that recipe. It would be 1 part liquid shellac.
Beeswax.
It's 1 part liquid shellac of the 4-pound cut.
For what I do, yes. I like a 4-pound cut because it gives it a heavier body. These are just standard soda bottles. The PET or PETE soda bottles, the alcohol tends not to leach out as fast. If you use like a lighter plastic, sometimes you see condiment bottles, or like blue bottles are a milky colored plastic. Those tend to let the alcohol leach out. So that's my 1 part shellac. This is my walnut oil. And all of these are by volume.
I use a Danish oil. Is it different than the walnut oil?
I'm not sure exactly what Danish oil is. I believe it's tongue oil and polyurethane. Is that right? Tongue oil, okay. Tongue oil and thinner.
It's already a varnish tongue oil mixture, yeah.
And for the alcohol, I use grain alcohol. It's actually Everclear.
What proof?
It is 189 proof. You can't buy it in Pennsylvania. You have to go to Maryland to get it. That's possibly New Jersey.
You can get 192 in Manhattan.
We could get it here in New York.
Send us all a bottle.
When I come to visit.
I'm going to keep that away from.
So this is what you had on that cherry bowl?
Almost. This is just a standard friction polish.
So
I'll
say
demonstrate this in a little bit.
say the recipe again.
It's 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, or 1, 1, and 1.
And the ingredient.
Liquid shellac, grain alcohol, and then walnut oil. And you shake it up and it becomes this sort of milky color. And then you'll apply with a paper towel. You just pour that right in.
So that's essentially like French polishing on an old
It is a French
violin,
polish,
basically,
yeah.
but you
It
use
is
it
a
on
French
a lathe.
polish.
Yeah.
I've just substituted all the ingredients with food safe ingredients.
Yeah.
Can I smell that? 'Cause I make up those.
I use Aussie's oil from PSI. I really like it. It's a friction polish, and you have to shake it like that to make it milky before you use it. I wonder if it's the same thing.
Correct, it's the same thing. And if you wanted to make your own that wasn't the standard food safe, the recipe, the food safe like this, if you just wanted to use denatured alcohol, liquid shellac, and boiled linseed oil, it does the same thing. It's way cheaper. Yep. So now my walnut oil, just overhead. Yes, please. So the
Could you
walnut
use
oil,
mineral oil instead of walnut oil? Any kind of oil.
you probably could. It doesn't harden. So that's why I shied away from mineral oil. But it wouldn't add any color to it. Like this walnut oil adds a little bit of color.
Okay.
So this is the walnut oil and Carnauba wax that I've melted. And I'm going to remove my heat.
Why are you using such a strong alcohol, grain alcohol, but just regular alcohol you buy as a thinner? Is it much different?
You can't drink the kind you buy as a thinner. And that's the main goal, is to make finishes that
Okay.
are made out of materials that are food safe to start.
Okay.
So for
Why
this,
does the alcohol content have to be so high? It just- it's my question.
the alcohol content has to be that high because if it's not, it's water. Anything that's not in that's alcohol is water, and that'll ruin your finish or won't make it as effective, I guess. If you mix up a 1 pound cut of shellac, that can be used as sanding sealer. So that was a common sanding sealer before the, what's it, nitrous cellulose lacquer sanding sealers came available. So for the friction polish cream, which is the, based off of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I use 10 parts liquid shellac. Correct. All of these recipes are on the handout. So.
I'm just going to show you the 3 views.
Okay. So this is my 4 pound cut of shellac, and I'm doing 10 parts of this, or 200 grams.
What I wonder is, once you've done all that, how are you going to clean that blender?
This is my dedicated shellac blender. So it's the only thing I use it for. It was the cheapest blender available on Amazon. So when it dies, it dies. The nice thing about the Carnauba wax, it tends to wipe out fairly easily. So this will clean out fairly well.
Also, you could just throw a bunch of M&Ms in there, right?
You could. I do run them through the dishwasher. Barry, can you get the shot? No.
You could probably run the alcohol and blend that. That would thin it, clean it.
So when I first was working on this recipe, I wanted to make a shellac friction polish stick. I thought that would be great to apply that way. The problem I was running into is the alcohol. I would put wax and alcohol and the shellac, all the Carnauba wax, alcohol, shellac, oil, all in the boiler at one time and try to melt it all down into a stick. The problem is the boiling point of the alcohol is lower than the melting point of the Carnauba wax. So all of my alcohol was boiling off, and I would get shellac chunks inside a stick of wax, and that just wasn't going to do anything. So I've worked on this cream recipe. I'm hoping this has cooled enough.
Just pour in there?
So that was my walnut oil and Carnauba wax melted together, mixed in with the shellac now. The Carnauba wax acts as an emulsifier. I was looking up other potential emulsifiers. There are others that soap makers use, but I was kind of surprised to see that the Carnauba wax did it on its own. And then that I just put in these nice little gold tins. And so those are the 4 basic finishes that I use. One other is the walnut oil, which I talked about. I will use as a sanding oil. Sponsor.
Sampling this is sponsored by Everclear.
Not Russian vodka. We're not doing Russian vodka. That's right. It's American Everclear, or wherever Everclear comes from.
So those ingredients don't separate like regular friction polish.
Correct. These stay, I've had these samples, the ones I showed, for over a month now.
I like that.
I still tend to give it a stir on occasion. And where I have them stored is in my barn that's very cold. So I'll give an update this summer to see if it does anything weird, but I might just switch to putting it in the refrigerator. Okay. Not positive. Don't know.
What's the shelf life for that?
With liquid shellac, they say you can mix it up and it'll last about a year. So I imagine that this will be the same. That one full or? Yeah, it's an old one. Okay, or a previously made one. Okay, I'm gonna switch. That's enough of this, probably. These I will run through the dishwasher a couple times by themselves, not with any other dishes, because I don't want to coat anything else in shellac that I don't want coated.
So how is this suspend? Which ingredient is keeping it from separating? The walnut oil?
The Carnauba wax. It acts like an emulsifier.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Which means it bonds the oil in the water, basically, the water being alcohol. So this is just a piece of walnut. I have one end taped off so that it doesn't get contaminated. You can see it rough or natural. These have all been sanded to 220. And I'll just take a little bit of the beeswax polish or butcher's.
Which mix is that?
This is butcher's block.
You trying to generate heat with that?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of friction heat. You can, sure. That lets you see the walnut with the butcher's block. This has only been sanded to 220. So now if I were to use, let's say I'm going to sand it with a little walnut oil. Most of my finishes or sand wood projects, I'll use a little bit of walnut oil. Applied to the whole thing as my sanding oil. And then apply just a tiny little bit to my drill, my power sander. You can see the nice thing about using oil as a sanding lubricant, it doesn't generate any dust.
Doesn't the slurry fill the pores of the wood?
It does, but it also sort of, what do you want to call it? Burnishes it. So this is 400. So I'm not going to go past 400 for tonight. I'll take the abrasive paste. And that's sort of how you can see that.
What is that? What's in that?
So this is the abrasive paste. It acts like the Yorkshire grit,
That's the diatomaceous.
diatomaceous earth, yep,
Mixed with.
mixed with beeswax and mineral oil.
Essentially making your 400 grit, 1,000 grit, or 800 grit.
Correct. Normally I would have gone to 600, but we're running out of time tonight. A little bit. A little bit. I try not to use too much. I also don't care if my clothes get dirty. Let's see, let's get a little shinier. Now I'll switch to Carnauba Wax for the first one. So this is just straight Carnauba Wax, the stick of Carnauba Wax that I melted before. Just press it in. You can see it starts to get a sheen. For some reason, some people don't like Carnauba Wax on walnut. I don't really know why. I don't have a problem with it. Pardon me?
Can any of the finishes like shellac?
Shellac can be applied on top of. Yep.
Applied on top of the Carnauba?
Correct. You could do that. Yep. So you can see the Carnauba Wax is kind of caked on. As you buff it, I like to have a bright light on it. You can actually see the line of the light get sharper, and that lets you know it's spreading. And it has a nice smell to it too. So there you can see the difference between just the beeswax. It's a little bit more gloss. Let's put another. Yeah. You can see how the line of the light gets sharper. It gets a little more gloss. And now we'll go with, where did my bottle of liquid shellac go? Yes, thank you. So this one gets shaken up.
What's in that one?
So this is the sort of standard friction polish. It's 1/3 walnut oil, 1/3 shellac, and 1/3 grain alcohol. That you just apply a small amount with a paper towel, just like that much. Just a tiny little drop. Since I'm doing such a.
Any idea how fast the grain alcohol evaporates compared to denatured alcohol?
I don't know. And with this, you'll start to feel the heat, letting you know that the alcohol is evaporating and the shellac is spreading. And it's really penetrating the wood. You have to keep it moving, otherwise you might get streaks.
What sort of speed RPM are you running at?
I don't know with this lathe. I run as fast as I possibly can, or safely
Okay.
can. And it gets sort of crunchy as the shellac on the paper towel hardens. You can see that's just one coat. It's got a pretty good shine to it already. You should let it cool a little bit. Sometimes I'll cool it down with my air compressor.
You're using paper towels instead of cotton cloth. Reason for that? Is there a difference between the two?
Cotton cloths might give you a better finish, but you run the risk of them wrapping around the piece. If the paper towel wraps around the piece, it's going to tear away. It's not, a cotton cloth wouldn't tear away.
Do you ever use reverse?
Yes, I usually will reverse between grits. So when I'm sanding, I'll reverse, and then between layers of the shellac, I'll reverse as well. So this is the cream version of this, which has the additive of the Carnauba wax. And that's probably way too much. If you let it cool, it'll be a little bit smoother than this, but I think this is probably fine. And that you apply the same way. You let it spread with the paper towel and let the heat friction cure it. The nice thing about the cream is you can use it on larger objects. The liquid, once you start to spread it, you kind of need a smaller object for it to be effective on. This you could use on a large platter or something because you could coat the bowl in it as you're using it. So I don't know if there's someplace I can show this off.
It's gonna be hard to show it off. Probably the overhead's your best bet. Or no, actually, a close-up from Sheila might be the best bet.
How many coats of finish do you put on?
Typically with the cream, I'll do 3. With the liquid, probably 2. And with the others, it's usually whatever I feel like. The butcher's block and just the straight Carnauba wax. Butcher's block usually just 1, maybe 2. I got.
Is there a wait time between applications?
I try to let it cool down just a little bit.
Not like ours.
No, minutes. That's part of the reasons I was working on these finishes, because I don't like to wait. I don't want to wait days. My shop's dusty. It's going to ruin a finish. I'm going to put one more coat on that one.
Is walnut oil by itself for friction finish? I'm just starting to use walnut oil and I thought you applied and don't friction it in. Do you friction it in if you use straight walnut oil?
I will friction it in. You can, I know some people let their stuff soak. See, right now I can feel this one getting hot as the wax melts, the shellac melts, and everything spreads.
Go overhead for that. We were getting a better view before. Get a better view here.
Yeah, that's good.
You can see the color here. Overhead, you don't see the color.
Trust us, it's shinier going
Yeah.
left to right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which of these is the hardest finish, the most durable?
It's going to be the friction polish is probably the most durable.
Yeah. That's the one with shellac and Carnauba.
Correct. Yep. Carnauba wax maybe. With Carnauba wax, you can only put on so much Carnauba wax. It'll start to flake off.
Yeah, and really a wax is only one molecule.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you start building it up, it just sort of flakes off.
Nice.
Any other questions?
Okay, I'm going to remove the spotlight from you for a second, Matt. And I'm going to get it back to a gallery view here for those who have remained with us. We're down to 22. Questions?
Thanks for bearing with me in the cooking and watching things boil.
The ones who win a while, I'll watch the video. Yeah, I think that was a good show.
So
Very good.
Cooking shows.
thank you, everyone. If there's no other questions, please join us next month. The challenge is the April Fool's Challenge, and Thomas will be giving us our demo. So
Very good demo. Thank you.
on the new lathe, yes.
Yeah, we'll be rearranging this room this week. Yeah.
One question I have is why are you gonna eat off a billy club?
You never know. He uses it to crack walnuts.
Why should blackjack need to be food safe?
Cotton candy around it.
I like to protect the bruises it makes.
You never know who he's gonna hit.
That's right.
Or where?
You want me to end? Shall I end for all?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
See you
Thank
next month.
you. Good job.
Good night.
Thanks, Joe.